Sonic the Continuation, Issue 15. We start out with Super Sonic saying that after so long, he's found the way into Sonic's conscious mind. And now he can get out of the subconscious hell and get back to the real world. Lucky for him, that's apparently possible. Then he hopes Sonic hasn't gotten himself into trouble. So he's good? Did Ebony actually make him good again in Issue 0? But that was only temporary. And he was evil in the issues after that. Anyways, since when is Super Sonic trapped in a whole other universe and trying to get out of Sonic's mind? You'd think if he could find his way into Sonic's conscious mind, he would have done that a long time ago. Apparently it was just that difficult. It would be so much less confusing to just have a new super form entirely, cause then you could do whatever new stuff you wanted with it. The story starts out with Sonic being arrested while he was eating a chili dog for no apparent reason by some humans. Even though they could have easily spared him from being arrested, because, they already had the arrested plot element done with Amy. Guess they figured it wouldn't be an SC2 story adaptation without it. But there's really no reason to do an SC2 adaptation. The only reason is to introduce Rouge and Shadow, and SDC Online introduced Rouge and Shadow without completely copying the story. I like that the chili dog stand guy says, "Officers, he paid for his food," and is trying the best it can to make up for how depressing this is. Sonic let them arrest them because he didn't want to cut loose with all those civilians there, and he wanted to finish his chili dog, so he's not too upset by it. He also thanks them for the ride, not taking things seriously at all. He vibrates his arm at Sonic's speed and breaks the chain that restrained him. So at least that tries to explain it this time. This lets him break out of the helicopter, I guess. The text box says he had been arrested for attacks on the human military. He fell towards a tower, and I guess grabbed it to slow down his fall and ran through City Escape. It would be really boring and clearly pointless to be too much like the game's plot that already happened, so it's too bad he gets chased by the gun truck. At least only for a second. Then we see Super Sonic's reflection in a window near him, and he says that he knew it. So now I'm interested again. He speaks to him from his mind. They argue with each other, stuck with each other, and then Tails shows up and Super has to remind Sonic that nobody can see him because he's in his head. Tails thankfully has enough faith in Sonic to say that he must have been framed, and Sonic is sarcastic with him for stating the obvious, as usual. Tails shows him Knuckles on a communicator watch that Techno gave him, and Knuckles tells Sonic that Tikal was kidnapped and the emeralds were stolen. Sonic knows that Shadow's luring him to a trap, but since he has every reason to hate him, he says he's gonna get decked, and Super insists on being judgmental of him for that, for no reason. After Sonic considers a libel and slander lawsuit for being called dangerous on the news, Super tells him that he can sense chaos energy pulsing at him from a building above them. They go upwards, and Sonic and Tails get hit, though it was hard to tell what was happening at first glance because it looks like they got hit with lasers instead of a black blur. His blur was that color in the game, but that never made sense. Obviously a black colored character moving fast would create a black blur. Shadow brags that he's the ultimate life form and outright flawless, going with the flanderization of his ego from modern Shadow. But at least that's different from SA2. The plot bores me by being just like the game otherwise. I wish it was explained that the reason Tails got effortlessly hit away by a laser when he was trying to attack Shadow from behind was that Shadow heard his tail spinning behind him and coming up closer to him. Because it really doesn't seem fair that Shadow immediately knew he was going to attack him from behind when he was fighting Sonic, when he didn't see him. Sonic gets mad at what happened to Tails, and Super warns him that if he lets himself get too angry, he'll turn into Super Sonic and then Super will go berserk. I don't understand why if he's good Super Sonic, then Sonic turning into Super Sonic would still make him evil. Eggman plays a message to the world from Ark, and it's only interesting again when he says that the humans just installed the Eclipse cannon into it, in case the natives ever found out about it. So Warbot gets rid of the camouflage of the Ark, and Sonic says that the Mobian Moon is a space station. And 2 entire pages are wasted on ripping off SA2 again, because go figure, the moon of Earth gets blown in half by a laser. Cut to the chase! Wasn't it common sense to not use the plot of SA2 at all because we already saw it? This isn't creative. I've seen it again in Sonic X too. I've seen it again in Archie Sonic. I've seen like a dozen different iterations of the Sonic franchise at this point. Of course I'm gonna get bored by seeing something I've already seen before. Eggman says that his forces will begin reoccupation of Mobius within the hour. And if any freedom fighters or military try to resist, he'll eradicate the entire zone they're in. And we see Porker getting dressed in his black jacket again out of nowhere, so now it's epic. You'd think he'd be too scared to after seeing the moon get blown in half, when the whole reason he ditched the freedom fighters was out of fear. Like what happened to I'm not handling stress and fear well, and being terrified of chaos. Good that he develops out of that, but still. Shadow sends a fireball towards Sonic and Super catches it, which confuses Shadow, and Sonic hits Shadow, and Super says that it'll keep his blasts off him. Eggman drops a bunch of robots to the Emerald Hill village, and they look like demented taller egg pawns, which is actually kind of threatening. They tell the civilians to return to their homes because lockdown is in effect. Shadow says that Eggman is taking over every zone of the planet, as if he cares when he's supposed to want to destroy it from Maria. This is just undoing the heroes' victory in issue 100. But their victory was way too easy. Sonic only had to do like one thing. So it'll be worth it if the way he's taken down is much better. Then out of nowhere, he sees Supersonic. At least that's a new ability of Shadow's. Shadow says it's time to stop playing around and use his Chaos Control. But he shouldn't have been written to say he stopped playing around, because if that was the case, then when he used Chaos Control, he would have teleported Sonic and Tails apart to kill them, not warped them to Emerald Hill to confuse them so that it could merely hit Sonic a lot. It would make sense for Knuckles to be able to see Supersonic here, because he can sense Chaos Energy, but since when can Shadow do that? Super says that when he looked at Sonic, he feels it too, and says he has to get up. I get it, Shadow's strong. I've watched Sonic X. Does this ripoff fight have to drag on so long? This is not content. An entire page is wasted, and Shadow's hit with the laser by Short Fuse. Short Fuse, Techno, and Porker don't show up nearly enough in the Span comic, to the point of feeling like mere cameos. Porker to a much lesser extent. They need to actually do stuff. It's bad enough that the Kingdom War computer was put on a bus. Shadow teleports away back to the Ark instead of using Chaos Control to teleport any of his enemies apart, or freeze time and effortlessly kill all of them. He warped away because he took Short Fuse really seriously as someone who could beat him, but then why didn't he kill him logically? Why didn't he warp his armor apart? It only worked in SC2 because he probably didn't see Sonic as a threat out of lack of familiarity with him, and because he assumed the world was about to be destroyed anyways. So of course he was really arrogant in his first appearance. You'd think a guy who wants to destroy the world would be fine with killing his enemies right away when he realizes they're a threat, instead of just teleporting to the Ark out of fear. But it has to be written to be really short-sighted and cowardly with his Chaos Control, or the story would be way too dark. A guy who's fine with destroying the world still doesn't want to outright see the consequences of teleporting someone's arm off. It made a bit more sense in SA2. He fought Sonic alone twice and only left him because he didn't have the time. Eggman asks what Shadow is doing, and Shadow says that Eggman said that if any hero tried to fight back, the zone they're in would be destroyed. He wants to demonstrate that it wasn't an idle threat. But would he actually be allowed to do that by the writer? That'd be pretty dark, because realistically nobody in that zone would survive that. Orbot says they can't because they haven't recharged the cannon yet, but Shadow says that's more than enough to do the job. Maybe Orbot is just lying to try to discourage him from doing this, because you should know what Shadow knows. Eggman says he's fine with Shadow's decision because he would have done it anyways. Super apologizes to Sonic and says that Sonic has no choice now. Sonic tells Short Fuse and Tails to evacuate the zone completely. What makes them think they'll have enough time to even get themselves out of there? They don't have super speed. They saw how quickly the moon was hit by a laser. Tails says that Sonic's leg is too injured. Sonic turns into Supersonic and goes towards the laser to block it. As apparently that's something that Supersonic can do. Super tells Sonic that Sonic has some blue still there somehow, that this isn't like all of the other times, because now they're both awake. But Sonic fails anyways. That was surprising, because usually this is a kids' franchise, so we wouldn't have the guts to do this. How would Tails survive this? I guess the two of them didn't trust each other enough, and so Sonic got out of the way of the laser. Actually, you'd think Supersonic would be a lot more powerful in SEC, since, again, he doesn't need all the emeralds to exist. So he always has all the power of the emeralds in him, then. This issue by Okuda was mostly wasted on Shadow fighting Sonic. He lured him here so that Sonic would see Eggman's message to the world. The only interesting things are that Supersonic blocks Shadow's blast of energy for Sonic, because Supersonic's in his head, but escaped from his subconscious mind world somehow. Which was more confusing than interesting, because why didn't it happen a long time ago? And Shadow tries to have the entire zone Sonic was in destroyed, and Sonic fails to block the laser apparently. But he told his friends to evacuate. How would they be fast enough to do that? It should have been explained how much time Sonic spent blocking the laser, slowing it down. The robots were sent to every zone on Mobius, as apparently, that many robots could fit where Eggman was. He was just on one satellite. He's lucky he got to find enough robot materials without any Dracon assistance, as just a lone fugitive wandering the world. This plot hole is probably exactly why this didn't happen for Eggman in SEC Online. He does have an egg carrier, and he barely ever does anything in this fan comic, so I guess we're supposed to assume that he spends most of his time getting robot materials, so we had enough time to build up a huge army. But still, you'd think he wouldn't be able to fit enough robots to occupy every single region on the planet in one egg carrier. And this is where the fan comic ends, because issue 16 hasn't been finished yet. So that's a pretty dark ending, where somehow Eggman took over the world again with way more robots than he'd realistically have, because he got access to the Ark, because somehow Earth and Mobius had to fuse together, something that would never ever happen in Sonic the Comic. And barely any Fleetway characters showed up. Archie characters were more likely to. It's mostly just feeling like the games' world, and every issue was one story the whole time. And Amy and Tails were humiliated and useless. SEC Online is better. Most of the issues of this comic are alright, but this is not a continuation of SEC. It's more like redundant adaptations of SE1 and 2 with a few Fleetway characters thrown in.